Made a bunch of granny squares and now they're just sitting there? You're not alone. This is the part where a lot of crocheters get stuck. Today I'm going to show you my 4 favorite ways to join granny squares and help you decide which one is right for your project. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump right in. Hi, I'm Cherie from Lefty Learns, and I teach beginner-friendly left-handed crochet. In this video, I'll walk you through 4 different joining methods, from beginner-friendly to more advanced, so you can confidently turn your squares into a finished piece. First up is the slip stitch join. This method is great because it's quick, easy, and creates a neat ridge between your squares without adding too much bulk. For this method, you'll hold your squares right sides together and slip stitch through both layers across the edge. This creates a visible ridge, so it's great if you want that texture. It's also really beginner friendly and super secure. The downside is that the seam is raised, so you'll definitely see it in your finished product. Let's walk through it step by step. Start by laying out your granny squares in the order that you want them to be joined. For the slip stitch join, place your squares right side up next to each other. We'll be working across the edge of both squares at the same time. We're going to start by securing our yarn with a knot in our corner stitch. We'll insert the hook through our corner stitch and draw up a loop. And then yarn over and pull through that loop. From there, we're going to go into both loops of each square. So next, insert your hook through the next stitch right here. You can see, if you look across the top, you see all the V's that are all your stitches. So we're going to come to our first V right here and insert our hook. And then same thing on the second square and insert our hook. Yarn over, pull through both of those, and then pull through the loop on your hook. We're going to do that all the way down. So here's our next set of V's. I'm going to insert our hook, and then through the second square, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through the loop that's on our hook. So you're essentially making chain stitches all the way down the seam of these 2 squares. And so you can see I go under the next V, and then under the back V, yarn over, pull through everything, and pull through that loop on my hook. We'll do a few more together. Got the loop on our hook, under both V's, yarn over, pull through, and pull through that loop. For both, yarn over, pull through that. Your stitches should match all the way down until you get to your next corner. It's a very easy stitch to do as a beginner when you're joining granny squares. We're at our last set of V's for the row. Yarn over, pull through all of them, and then pull through that loop. So from here, if this were the last one, you could tie off however you like to tie off, or you can keep going for the next set of rows. You can see what it looks like, how we've got that raised seam along the edge. We'll just tie off with a slip knot. And there we have it. Once you finish, you'll see a nice clean ridge running between your squares. This method is great because it's simple, sturdy, and adds a little bit of texture between your squares. If you're making something like a blanket or a bag, this join gives you a really nice structured look. Next is the single crochet join. This works similarly to the slip knot, but instead of slip stitching, you'll use single crochet stitches. That makes the seam thicker and more pronounced. This is one of the strongest joins, so it's great for blankets that'll get a lot of use. But again, it creates a visible ridge, so it becomes a part of your design. We're going to start again by laying our squares out in the order that we want them and place them right side up next to each other. With the single crochet join, we'll be working across the edge of both squares at the same time. We'll start by creating our knot again to really anchor that stitch or our seam to our work. After we secure our yarn to our work with a knot in the corner, you can see your V's across the top. Those are the stitches that we're going to go under, and we're going to go under both pieces of that V. So we're going to start with our yarn in the top right corner. We're going to create a loop over our hook. Then put your hook through both squares, the corner of both squares, yarn over, and pull through. And that's going to create a second loop on your hook. Yarn over and pull through both of those loops. And we have one again. So we'll go into the next stitch. We'll go through both V's, through both squares, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both. So you're creating single crochets down the seam of these two squares. So through both V's, through both V's, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. You can see how the single crochets are going to work all the way down this seam. Through both V's and both squares, yarn over in the back, pull it through. You've got two loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. All the way down. We're at the end of our square now. So if you were finished, you would do one more in this corner stitch and then tie off your work. Or you can keep going with more squares. If you have more, pull two more squares and put them up top and keep working your way up. And that is the single crochet join. Once you've finished, you'll see this really nice raised ridge between your squares. Some crocheters love this because it adds definition and texture to the blanket design. If you prefer a flatter join, there are other methods, but this one is fast, beginner friendly, and super durable. Now let's talk about the whip stitch, which is a sewing method. You'll use a yarn needle and stitch back and forth through the edges of your squares. This creates a much flatter, cleaner seam. This is my go-to if I want my blanket to look seamless, especially when working with multiple colors. It does take a little longer, but the finished look is really polished. Start by laying out your squares right side up in the order you want them to be joined. Line them up so the edges match, stitch by stitch. You want the corners aligned and each stitch directly across from its match. cut a long strand of yarn about 18 inches or so. We're going to start by tying the yarn in a knot in the corners to really secure our join and create a nice strong seam. And then we'll thread our yarn needle. Next, we're going to move to the next stitch along the edge. Insert your needle from front to back, again going through both V's and within its counterpart stitch on the other square. And you're going to pull your yarn through both. Come back around to the left. We'll go to our next stitch, which is right here, through under both V's on both squares, and pull through. And we're just going to continue this all the way up this seam. We're going to go under both V's on that square and both V's on this square. Pull our yarn. As you go, you want to pull the yarn just until it's snug. You don't want it tight. If you pull too tight, your seam will pucker. You're aiming for the edges to sit flat right next to each other. Pull through. And now we're in the stitch of our corner. So again, like the other stitches, you can continue moving up, adding more squares to join, or if this is the end of your project, you can tie off the way you prefer and weave in your ends. That's the whip stitch. It's a simple method that gives you a clean, flat seam, perfect if you don't want a real bulky join. You can see how flat that's laying. This last method is the invisible join or the mattress stitch. It's very similar to the whip stitch, but instead of wrapping over the edge, we're going to sew through the stitches so the seam blends in and almost disappears. It takes a little more attention to detail, but the result is gorgeous. Again, instead of using a hook, we're going to use a yarn needle and a length of yarn. We're going to cut a strand about 18 inches or so and start with a knot in our corner, same way we did everything else, to really secure this yarn for the seam of these squares. Okay, we've got our squares together. Going to thread our needle. Let's get started. Again, looking at the edge of our square, you can see all the V stitches. And what we're going to be doing is just going through the back loop of each. So if you open it up, the back loop is going to be the one that's furthest from you as you look at the square. So it's not going to be this loop of the V. It's going to be this back loop. You can see right there. This one of the V. Yeah, there's two loops, and we're going to be working in the back one of both squares. So once you get yourself oriented with that, it'll make it a little easier to see. on this right square, it's not this one. See, here are 2 loops for the V. So we're going to be working into this one. So when you put your 2 squares together, it's going to be the 2 outside loops. So you can see this one right here and this one right here. So we're going to insert our needle under the back loop of the first stitch right here on the left, and then come across to the back loop of the square on the right and pull your yarn through. And instead of coming back over and going from the left to the right for every stitch, we're going to zigzag back and forth. So now we've got this outside one on this right square to the outside loop on the left square. We don't want it too tight because we don't want our seam to pucker. You can see we're just going to keep going back and forth through our outside loops. All the way till the end. There we go. And again, once you get to the end, you can continue connecting squares, or if you're at the end of the project, tie off and weave in your ends the same way you would with anything else that you're working on. So now that we're at the end of it, what we're going to do is open it up. We're going to pull our yarn tight. And watch this. You can see as it disappears, the seam almost disappears through everything, through the whole project, which is why it's called an invisible seam. This method is perfect for blankets when you want the color patterns and stitches to stay the focus and not the seam. So now you've seen all 4 methods, and honestly, there's no right way to join granny squares. It really depends on the look and feel that you want for your project. But if you're working with a lot of color or you want your finished piece to look really clean and seamless, I personally recommend the invisible join. It keeps everything looking polished without adding extra bulk or distracting from your design. If this video helped you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more beginner-friendly left-handed crochet tutorials, and let me know in the comments which stitch you choose for your project to join your squares.